morning from Southwest Missouri. Had to make a quick trip because of a relative who's not feeling well. So I thought I would do this video today from this location. In our last session, we were discussing the fact that the root word used for eternal in the original language of the Bible did not really mean eternal. It is the Greek word aionios, which is derived from the Greek word aion, from which we see translated as age in the English Standard Bible, the NIV, and almost all the newer versions. Let's look at the Greek word aion, or its English counterpart, age. For example, what do we think of when we hear the term Stone Age? Well, generally we think of a very long period of time wherein primitive people used implements of stone to live with. Then we have recently the Industrial Age, a period of time in the mid-19th century to the mid-20th century when manufacturing dominated the world scene. Next you have the Space Age, and right now we are living in the Information Age. You get the picture. That's right, an age is an unspecified period of time which has a beginning and an end. As I stated in the last session of this series, this word age, which we are discussing, is a noun. If you turn that word into a descriptive word, such as an adjective, you will have a word like age abiding. I would like to once again emphasize that it cannot have a meaning which is longer than the root word itself. Let's look again at how this word aionios is used in the New Testament by the translators. There are three renderings of Matthew 25:41 that I'd like to consider. First, from the English Standard Version, it says, "Then he will say to those on his left, 'Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels.'" Now from two other translations. First, the Rotherham, which says, "Then he will say unto those also on his left hand, 'Depart ye from me, accursed ones, into the age-abiding fire, which hath been prepared for the adversary and his messengers.'" And from the Weymouth New Testament, "Then will he say to those on his left, Begone from me, with the curse resting upon you, into the fire of the ages, which hath been prepared for the devil and his angels." In the foreword to John Wesley Hanson's book, Aion Aionios, we find recorded the following words: "Surely one of the gravest mistakes in Bible translating has been the mistranslation of the Hebrew word olam and its Greek equivalent aion and its adjective aionios. To attribute eternal qualities to a word signifying periods of time in original Hebrew and Greek has completely changed the nature of the character of God and his plan of redemption of mankind." Translations such as Young's Literal, Rotherham's Emphasized, Concordant Literal, Weymouth's New Testament, 20th Century New Testament, Jonathan Mitchell's New Testament, as well as many others, have rendered the Hebrew olam and the Greek aion and aionios with the word signifying time on earth, not as eternal or signifying everlastingness. Yes, the fact is that the fire described in this verse is a type of fire that is unknown to us, and the duration is also unknown. But God is unchangeable, and we can have confidence, as always, in his love and grace, even upon those described in this verse. Now let's look at one more Greek word that bears on this case, and that word is the word for punishment, which is kolasin, the root word of which is kolassos. Notice what Thayer's Greek lexicon says of this. Kolassos, correction, punishment, or penalty. So the word used here, kolassos, means correction. Thus we can derive from this that there is a purpose for the punishment mentioned in Matthew 25:46, and that is for the purpose of correction. Let's read this verse once again. "And these shall go away into age-abiding correction, but the righteous into age-abiding life." Did you notice how the Rotherham version translates the Greek word kolassos? Yes, instead of saying punishment, it says correction. This is entirely consistent with the love of God, isn't it? Now, putting all this together, we can see that Matthew 25:46 speaks of a punishment that is corrective, that can last for a period of time depending on the length of the age. Since God is sovereign, this means that the length of the age is up to him. Do you see the profound significance of this? This really is all that we can determine exegetically from this passage, which has scared so many people throughout the last several hundred years. Yes, we've all known preachers that have used this verse to try to scare people into becoming believers. But since we are created in God's image, we have the ability to look at this as God does. It is also up to God to determine the meaning of age-abiding life. If we believe the Bible when it says God is love, then we have nothing to worry about, especially if we are put our trust in Him. By putting our trust in Him, we are reconciled to Him, just as we read in His Word. For if while we were enemies reconciled to God by the death of His Son, how much more, now that we are reconciled, shall we be saved by His life? So with this in mind, I'd like to ask you who have children, why do you punish these beloved ones? Is it because you hate them and want to get even with them for what they have done? Of course not. It is because you love them and want to correct them. This means that there is a loving purpose to the correction of God. God does not hate His children. He does not want to get even with them, and therefore He will not throw them into a state of eternal torture that goes on forever and ever with no purpose. No, but He will give them a lasting correction, and He will reconcile them to Himself, just as the passage above states. This is entirely consistent with a God of love. But now your question may be, what makes you so sure that this is the meaning of these verses? How can you be so sure that God will act in such a manner as this? Well, it's because we have examples in the Bible of this, which shows God's love and has His way of dealing with people. One of these will be described in the next session. In the meantime, why don't you go to Amazon.com and get a copy of my book, God's Purpose for Hell, a compelling probe of God's love for the lost, available both in hard copy and in the Kindle format. So until next time, thank you and God bless.